What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, the podcast that makes the all-star best of your favorite musicians. And I'm going to create a challenge here. And if you're willing to take that, go down that challenge road, you're more than welcome to, although I will preface it with the fact that death may occur if you try. This episode could easily be turned into a drinking game. If you hear the word rock, take a shot. If you hear the word roll, take a shot. If you hear the words rock and roll together in the same sentence or same song title, just keep drinking. And I'm sorry, because we are covering the one, the only AC/DC. And here to go down this road with me here, my good friend Gomez from the Sleevey G Show. Gomez, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Dude, doing awesome, man. Can't believe we're finally doing this, man. It was kind of funny. We were talking about this, I was going to say many moons ago. It feels like originally this idea of yours came up as we were talking about coming on the Sleevey G Show, actually, which was funny. The idea popped in your head.
It's like, this sounds like a really good idea. Yes, it is a really good idea, and now here we are. And then after we did that show, I'm like, okay, you got to pick a band. You have to come on the show. You picked AC/DC. What is it about AC/DC that wanted to make you go down this road?
Just their music, man. It's just one of those things that I love their music. I love their songs. I love everything about them. They're just wild. They put on a great show when you see them live. It's just the intensity that these guys bring. You know what I mean? They're true rock gods, like Kiss, all them. But some of the songs make you want to, if you're like me, like a car enthusiast, and you play a ton of video games like I do, you tend to go harder when you hear some of their songs.
Well, we're not going to get a chance really to talk about this one person out of this band, at least temporarily in the band. So I'm going to have to ask you right off the bat right now. When Axl Rose was singing for AC/DC, did that work for you?
That's a very good question. I did not hear him, again, I watched it on YouTube, and hearing him sing like Dirty Deeds or Thunderstruck or TNT or The Jack, you're like, really? I think he did a decent job stepping in for the time, but I don't think Axl will do it for me if he took over AC/DC. I don't know if I'll become a fan anymore. Then I would kind of slither away.
I will say, though, if anyone's ever going to take the mic at a tribute concert, Lizzie Hale would absolutely slay that entire set list.
I fully agree with you.
Oh, absolutely. The Hailstorms cover of Mistress for Christmas is absolutely amazing. But we have a lot to talk about here, so we're going to get to it because we have 17 studio albums on the docket to go through. So just to remind everyone, here's what's going to happen. Gomez and I are going to go through all 17 studio albums, picking only one song per album to make our playlist. And at the end of those 17 albums, we are going to go through and say, of all those songs, is there one that stands above all? Now, that being said, we are skipping all live albums. We're also skipping compilations, which means we're also going to be skipping the soundtracks to Iron Man and Maximum Overdrive, which was the Who Made Who album, which means Who Made Who, because it only appeared on that album, will not be available to be put on the list. Mm-hmm. Also, we also won't be talking about soundtracks where they were just, one artist on. So a song like Big Gun off of the Last Action Hero soundtrack, that's out of the mix. We are going to start, however, in 1976 with the international release of High Voltage, released May 14th, 1976. The album contains songs from their previously released albums High Voltage and TNT, which were only released in Australia at the time. The band at this point is Bon Scott, Angus Young, Malcolm Young, Mark Evans on bass, and Phil Rudd on drums. The album hit number 146 on the U.S. album charts, but number 7 in France. It is triple platinum in the U.S. And before we continue on, we had a few shout-outs. Johnny Rothen and Brian Colburn over on My Weekly Mixtape chimed in with their entire selection, so we're going to be showing them out through the whole show as well. Johnny Rothen and Brian both went long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. So Gomez, I'm going to hand the microphone over to you. Off of High Voltage, what did you go with?
So in 1976, they had High Voltage, great album, by the way. This was a hard one because there's a couple of songs I love in this album too. It's a Long Way to the Top, The Jack, TNT, which was kind of weird because they also had a TNT album, which was, I guess, like you said, the Australia version. But I got to go with It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. So start drinking.
You know what's funny? Going through the albums, I'm sitting there going, there's very, very few albums where there isn't a song title with either the words rock or roll in it. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know there's like one or two that don't have it, but I mean, I know as we get to Black Ice, I think that's got like 4 songs on it. But I also went with It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. I like Korn, so anytime you can put bagpipes in a song, I'm going to be happy about this. I will say though, it was hard not to pick TNT. Gomez, I'm an Anthrax fan, and when they covered TNT off of the Anthems albums, like, oh yeah, I forgot how really good this song is. But I think musically, anytime I hear It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll, crank it every time. It's a really good cruising song as opposed to TNT, which is just a bit of a fist pumper. But that means we have 4 selections for the same song.
Yeah, we do.
Just goes to show you how good that song is.
But it was so hard though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I love TNT too. I mean, like when I hear TNT, I get pumping. I want to punch somebody. I'll say it.
Which, by the way, that means if we ever see AC/DC together, I am stepping about 3 steps, out of arm's reach in the pit when that song comes on. Gomez's elbows out.
Gomez is ready. He's going to be locked and loaded.
You almost sounded like Randy the Macho Man Savage in Spider-Man there. Gomez is ready.
Oh yeah.
All right, we now move on to Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, released September 20th of 1976. This album peaked at number 3 in the US and number 5 in Australia. It is 6 times platinum in both of those countries. There were 2 singles off of this album. Jailbreak peaked at number 10 in Australia. Now, Johnny Rotten went with Ride On, and Brian went with Problem Child. So for you, what did you go with?
Well, it's kind of funny. I feel like every song that I've kind of chosen on AC/DC, it's usually their number one sound, their number one top track when they open with. But I did not go with Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. I went with Big Balls.
Okay.
Just because I love that song. It's just, I don't know, something about that song that makes me crack up. Right here, I got big balls, you got big balls. Who has the biggest balls of them all? It's just one of those songs that you're like, seriously? But it's funny as hell. I love it. And that's what I went with on this album.
Is it me or did some of those early AC/DC songs, if they were put out today, they could only be put out by a band like Steel Panther?
Oh, yeah. Steel Panther would cover Big Balls big time. I think they have, if I remember correctly. That's a song definitely Steel Panther would cover.
Well, I have to go with Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, which, for the record, I cannot hear that song and not think of, there was a meme that was out on Twitter and Facebook of basically taking this album and turning it into the R2-D2 version, Dirty Deeds Bleep Bloop Bleep, because of course R2-D2 is the most censored character in film history. Everything he says is bleeped out. Although I did have to say the Problem Child was really, really good too. But to me, Dirty Deeds is almost like that quintessential early AC/DC track. And again, another one, if it's on the radio, you're gonna crank it.
Oh yeah.
Next, we move on to Let There Be Rock, released March 1977 in Australia and July of that year internationally. The album peaked only at 154 in the US, but number 19 in Australia. It is 5 times platinum in Australia and only double platinum in the US. There were 4 singles off of this one, the highest charting being Let There Be Rock, that hit number 82 in Australia. Johnny Rotten and Brian both went with Whole Lotta Rosie, and I have to agree with them. This is one of those albums, though, and I have to say this, like, as much as I do like AC/DC, and I don't know about you, but I found with some of the albums, there was like one song, and then the rest almost felt like a little skip kind of thing. This was one of those albums where it's like you have like one or two really, really good songs, and the rest don't cut the mustard. But what about you? What did you go with off of Let There Be Rock?
I actually went with A Whole Lot of Rosie. I have to agree. One thing, I know we're not talking about the live albums, but, seeing them live is ridiculously awesome. I was very fortunate enough to catch them once live. And I'll tell you this, man, when they play that song, they really do bring out A Whole Lot of Rosie, because damn, that balloon was big. But it's such a great song too. It's just the vibe that this band puts out is so good. And you just can't go wrong.
That was always the thing about, Metallica albums. The reason why the Black Album did so well is because Bob Rock found a way to get that live vibe that they would put in their shows onto record. And yes, some of those earlier albums, yes, those songs do absolutely slay live, but the studio versions don't necessarily give them, don't put them in the best light.
They don't.
We now move on to Powerage, released in April 1978 in the UK and in May of that year in the US. We have a member change, though, at this point. Cliff Williams is now on bass. The album hit 133 in the US and 22 in Australia. It's triple platinum in Australia and platinum in the US. There was only one single off this one, Rock and Roll Damnation. That hit number 83 in Australia. That's the song that Brian went with, but Johnny Rothen went with Riff Raff. So off of Powerage, what did you go with?
Kicked in the teeth, because that's what this album felt like. They got kicked in the teeth. Rock and Roll Damnation was probably their only good hit, but they nailed it with the last song, Kicked in the Teeth, because I felt like this album wasn't one of their greatest ones. You know what I mean? I wasn't feeling it as much, except for the one or two songs. Riff Raff was good, but it just didn't. I don't know. It wasn't me.
Well, for me, Riff Raff is actually the song I went with, because there's some great tasty guitar licks on that one. But I do have to give mention to the song What's Next to the Moon. I actually found that one, it was good, but it didn't hit the fun level that Riff Raff brought into this. And that's the thing. AC/DC is a fun band, and while I liked What's Next to the Moon, it just wasn't as fun as Riff Raff. But again, you're right. It's one of those things where you see kind of almost waves in just how good the songwriting was. And early on, like those first couple albums, like, yes, they could do no wrong. And then there was like a breath or a lull. You could see that hill and valley kind of progression. And it's about to take off, because we're now talking Highway to Hell, released July 27th, 1979. This album hit number 17 in the US, 13 in Australia, and number 2 en France. It's 5 times platinum in Australia, double platinum in Canada, 7 times platinum in the US, platinum in France, Switzerland, and the UK. There were 3 singles off of this album, Highway to Hell being the highest charting. It was also their first song to chart in the US. It hit number 47. Key change on this album behind the scenes producing is Robert John Mutt Lang for the first time. Now, Johnny Rothen went with Touch Too Much, and Brian went If You Want Blood, You've Got It. And that's also the one I went with.
And again, such a great album. I had a tough choice between Highway to Hell and If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Now, I will explain why I love both songs. First of all, at the time when WWF was still around, not WWE, I still consider WWF, they actually did for, I think it was their Survivor Series, Highway to Hell. And that was such a great catchy gimmick for them, because it was like Stone Cold, I think, versus The Rock at that time. So that was just perfect. And hearing that song over and over and over again for the promotion was great. Now, If You Want Blood, You've Got It. It was in 2 movies that I actually like. One of them was Empire Records, which I've talked about, I don't know how many times, several times, when he's playing the drums in the office and everyone's going crazy, you know what I mean? And the dumbest, I wouldn't say one of the best movies, was The Dukes of Hazzards with Johnny Knoxville and Sean William Skies when they jumped to General Lee onto the highway. But I will agree with Brian and you. If you want blood, you've got it. One of my favorite songs because it's like a great, great song for driving if you want to go fast too. I don't highly recommend you drive fast, but if you do, make sure you don't get caught by the cops.
Speeding tickets may ensue. That's the thing. If you want blood, you've got, like, yes, Highway to Hell. People are going to sing along to it ad nauseum. I find the chorus better in If You Want Blood, You've Got It. And it's just one of those things where it's certain parts of the song that stand out more for me, at least from a musical standpoint. This song just has the better chorus for me. And that's why it kind of got picked over Highway to Hell. But next. If you're going to sign your soul to the devil in exchange for a hit album, this is probably what you're going to get. That album is Back in Black, released July 25th, 1980. We do have a member change, though, of course. Brian Johnson now on vocals after the untimely death of Bon Scott. The album hit number 1 in 5 countries, but not the U.S.,
which kind of shocked me.
It did hit number 1, though, in Australia, Canada, France, Switzerland, and UK. Now, get ready for this, okay? This album is 12 times platinum in Australia. It's diamond in Canada, and it is double diamond in the United States. That means that is, in essence, 50 times platinum in the U.S.
I was going to ask you, what the hell's a diamond? Because that's the first time I ever heard it.
Yep, diamond is 25 times platinum. The album had 4 singles. You Shook Me All Night Long hit number 35 in the US, and Back in Black hit number 37. Now, you want to talk about longevity for an album, okay? This album was ranked number 10 on the US Top Rock Album Year-End charts of 2022. So literally 42 years later, this album is still in the top 10 of the year-end rock album charts. And it's done that for the last 3 years. People are still buying this album now
because it's probably the one, again, like you said, you sold your soul to the devil twice, back-to-back albums, pretty much.
Like this album is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like the Grammy Hall of Fame, as far as works that have stood the test of time. Johnny Rotten went with Shake a Leg. Brian went with Back in Black. So for you, what did you go with?
I had 3 songs here. Hell's Bells is definitely one of them. Shoot to Thrill was another great one. Have a Drink on Me was another great one. And what's kind of funny is 2 out of the 3 were on 2 movies that I truly do secretly love a lot. Well, one of them I can admit to it. And I'm going to have to go with Shoot to Thrill. Something about this song, I just love it. It just has this great beat, and there's this one part of the song that you hear the drum solo, you know what I mean? And it's with the drum solo with the guitar playing in the background, you know, it's just so cool. And I hear that and I just want to keep going. And when you're driving, I keep going faster and faster, which is a bad thing for me. But it was in the movie again, Dukes of Hazzard, with Johnny Knoxville driving Boss Hogg's car, and you hear the song playing in the background. So another, you know, hate to say that I secretly liked that movie. I will say it. But it was one of those songs that when you hear it in the movie, it was great. When you hear it in your car, it's even better. When you're blasting it, you're singing it. But, you know, I got to give props to Have a Drink on Me because it was in the movie Beer Fest.
I'm seeing you this is the second time you've mentioned Dukes of Hazzard. I think this episode is turning into a silent plea for you to come back onto It's Not That Bad to discuss Dukes of Hazzard. I have a feeling this is your way of asking me, and I'm all for it.
You know what? It's great. I'm all for it too, but not secretly asking. That's funny that you picked up on it because I wasn't really doing it. It was just one of those dumb movies that I truly love these days.
Wasn't really, asking, but now that you mentioned it, now that we're asking, and yes,
now maybe we should do it.
Yes, absolutely, definitely. But I also went with Shoot to Thrill. But it's funny, it's Iron Man that actually, locked that one in for me. I can't remember if it was Iron Man or Iron Man 2, one of the two. But yeah, like Shoot to Thrill is such a banger of a song. Like, and maybe it's because, Back in Black is is very overplayed. I get it.
I love Back in Black, but the thing is, when I'm thinking of what I'm going to listen in the car, Back in Black, it doesn't have like those thrills for me, like shoot the thrill. Go figure, you know what I mean? No pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Or like have a drink on me, you know what I mean? If I'm in the cars, what do I want to enjoy in my car listening to a list? But if I'm at home, Back in Black is playing. Don't get me wrong. But has it been overplayed? It could be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But is it in my top 10 list? No, it's not.
Yeah, no. And same thing with You Shook Me All Night Long. Like, yes, I mean, we've played it live, but in my band as well. Like, and it slays on the dance floor every time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a reason why this album has the longevity that it has. These songs resonate, and again, do the math, like 43 years later, people still want those songs, which that almost 43 years old. Holy crap, I'm old. Okay.
Wow, I'm 43.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next, we move on to For Those About to Rock, released November 20th, 1981. This was their first number one album in the U.S. The album is 5 times platinum in Australia, 4 times platinum in the U.S., platinum in France and Switzerland. There were 2 singles off this one, the highest being the title track, which hit number 4 in the U.S. Now, Johnny Rotten went with Night of the Long Knives, and Brian went For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. I'm starting to think, I think Brian copied my list, because I also went with For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. I will say, though, and again, this is one of those ebbs and flows to their studio albums, this album, in comparison to Back in Black, like, I thought it was going to be a harder choice, but it wasn't. Back in Black is complete front to back, all killer, no filler. This album felt like a bit of a, not necessarily a lunchbox letdown, but just, it's hard to come off of an album like Back in Black. But what did you go with?
Well, like you said, this album was like not like you said, a little bit of a letdown thriller. But I do love For Those About the Rock, We Salute You, because when they are singing that song and they do the 21 gun salute, it's the best thing ever.
Oh, the song was made for live, and it almost feels
I love the studio album, don't get me wrong, but live, it's so much better.
I mean, it would be fascinating if they just, rather than, record them in the studio, just go play these songs live and, release those recordings. Because, yeah, this band and all of these songs are built for the live audience. They're built for that call and answer kind of response. They're built for people to sing along with the choruses. Like, this is a live band, so it feels kind of a disservice that we're not covering the live albums. But rules be rules, and we got to follow the rules of the show. Now, we move on to Flick of the Switch, released August 19th, 1983. The album hit number 50 in the US and number 3 in Australia, where it is triple times platinum, but only platinum in the US. There were 3 singles off of this one. The title track, Flick of the Switch, hit number 26 in the US. Both Johnny Rotten and Brian went with Rising Power. What did you go with?
Kind of funny. I didn't go with Rising Power. Again, I feel like everyone, if you notice on this list so far, everyone's been going with the number 1 track, which is usually the best way to start out an album, right? But I actually went in the middle of this one. I went with Landslide.
Okay. What was it about that one?
It just, the song, the lyrics, the way it was just sang, I thought it was actually a lot better than Rising Power, but that's my opinion. And that's what I love. You know what I mean? Again, it's everyone has their different standards, but I felt like this album was another, okay, AC/DC's finally coming out with a brand new album. Hopefully it was better than the other one. And this was like a little bottle rocket. It wasn't like the big flares, but this song I thought had some kind of flair, a little bit of flair than Rising Power.
It's funny. I actually had Landslide as a contender for one of the songs I was going to pick, but I didn't go with it in the end. And I also didn't go with Rising Power. I actually went with Deep in the Hole. The song's got
that was my backup song.
So we basically, we had either side of the coin, And it's like, I went with tails, you went with heads. Yeah, Deep in the Hole, it's got a nice little pocket groove on this one. And that's where, Angus and Malcolm Young really, knew how to write a good guitar song, right? Like just find that pocket groove, carry it through, and let Brian Johnson do what he does best, and Bon Scott before him. So before we get to the Jailbreak EP, I want to take a moment here, take a pause. We'll take a little AC/DC break here, or a power break, if you will. And I want to know more about the Sleevey G Show.
So the Sleevey G Show, which Jason, you've been already a part of on episode 3, we talked about one of our favorite games, Tony Hawk. We talked about the video game and the music. So pretty much, I was with Playlist Wars with Brian Colburn. We have a little bit of a hiatus because of a schedule conflict. You know what I mean? He has older kids. I have younger kids. So that played a little bit of what we're doing now. Brian's doing very well with My Weekly Mixtape, so please check him out. But with Sleevey G, I kind of went a different direction. I kind of did a little bit of everything. I had Brian on already on the show. I had a restaurant already, a restaurateur on my show. I've had 3 local New Jersey celebrities come on already. Talking to them their backgrounds on traffic, cooking, and entertainment news. So, I don't have a select direction, but I have what I love to talk about. Talk about food, movies, video games, sports, all this great stuff. And I also do blogging on sleeveygpodcasts.com. So I do write some good pieces. I wrote about Who's Your Hero? I wrote another great piece on autism, which I got someone coming on soon, even though Autism Month has ended. But we have to raise awareness on this. It's just not for 1 month. It should be 12 months out of the year. You know what I mean? I had another great conversation with another girl last 2 nights ago, and it was just fun and games and talking. So it's just a lot of fun what I'm doing. I'm kind of happy I'm branching out. I'm covering a little niche here in New Jersey. I am branching out now a little bit, finally getting some other people from other states to jump in the show to get some more recognitions, and Canada too, which I still thank you, Jason. It's been a lot of fun, and you can catch me on Linktree/SleevyG79. Catch me on SleevyGpodcasts.com. I love to hear from everybody. I love to hear any ideas if you want to come on the show too, which Jason, I know if you want to come back on, you're always welcome to. We're both NHL hockey fans. Maybe we'll talk about after the Stanley Cup, who we thought should have won and were big disappointments and stuff like that in the playoffs. So as we're watching already, some disappointing things are already happening.
Oh, trust me, this Stanley Cup run is going to be one heck of a run. And of course, on the day that we're recording this, we're still waiting for certain scores and how the first round is playing out. But trust me, there's some talking points there. But yes, absolutely, and by all means, go check out the Sleevey G Show on wherever you get your podcast, or go watch the videos on YouTube as well. It's a really great show with a wonderful selection of guests, except for that 3rd episode. That guy was a tool. But anyway.
No, he was great. He was actually one of my better ones too.
All right, let's get back to the rundown here on AC/DC. We now come with the first EP, 74 Jailbreak, which was released 10 years after 74. On October 19th of 1984, the EP was made up of songs previously only released in Australia, for the most part. The album hit number 76 in the US and is platinum there. Now, Brian went with Jailbreak off of this one. Gomez, what did you go with?
I'm going to have to agree with Brian. Jailbreak. That song just had it had a great beat to it. I just loved it.
It is definitely one of those first songs, especially when you think about the Bon Scott era. It's one of those, first songs that you think of, and you flash back to the video of Bon Scott standing on a pile of garbage and, singing along. Not the song I went with though.
Really?
I ended up going with Show Business. And there's something very George Thorogood-esque about this song. It's got a really nice bluesy feel to it. I could easily see, a more like a blues rock band pull this song into a live setting and bring it back to life.
Okay, yeah, I could see that too. I was listening to that. Yeah, I could definitely hear that one.
Now getting back to full studio releases with Fly on the Wall. Released June 28th, 1985, we have another member change. Simon Wright now on the drum kit. The album peaked at number 32 in the US and number 4 in Australia. It's 3 times platinum in Australia and platinum in the US. There were 3 singles off of this one. Danger peaked at 69 in Australia. Both Johnny Rotten and Brian went with Shake Your Foundations. So, off of Fly on the Wall, what have you got?
Well, as one of my favorite rappers would say, would the real Slim Shady please stand up? I went with Stand Up.
Nice.
Total cliche on him, but that was such a great song. I actually did love that one a lot. It just had such a great beat. Everything to it just sounded great. I mean, I don't think this is, again, one of their greatest albums, but enough that I did like Shake Your Foundations, but Stand Up had a better presence, I think. And that's, again, my opinion. But, when I heard Shake Your Foundations too, I was like, because I remember reading the list that everyone had on Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, I like that. But when I started listening to the other songs, I'm like, ooh, Stand Up just sounded a little bit more, I guess, more rockier, I guess I could say. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have to admit that, around this time, being Canadian that I am, I spent a lot of time watching Much Music, because this is when they actually played music videos. And, of course, you think about, AC/DC music videos back in then. And, of course, I mentioned the Jailbreak one from earlier. But I still remember to this day the music video for Sink the Pink. And it still sticks with me to this day. Clearly they went with a billiards motif on this album because they're on the video, because you probably kind of had to, considering what they were probably singing about. But that being said, literally every AC/DC song, it's either about rock and roll, or something dirty and horny. That's pretty much the AC/DC writing mantra on this one. But it still is a fun as hell song.
Oh, without a doubt, it's still one of the funnest songs out there. But again, it was one of those songs. I was listening to it. I'm like, really, Sink the Pink,
mm-hmm.
And then of course my mind went somewhere else when I first heard that.
Oh, clearly it's billiards. Has to be billiards.
Yeah, it's gotta be billiards. Yeah, I'll stand up on that one and go Bad Joke Day.
Bad joke, dad jokes for days. Next, we have Blow Up Your Video, released January 18th, 1988. The album hit number 12 in US and number 2 in Australia. It's triple platinum in Australia, platinum in Switzerland and US. Now, there's 2 singles off of this one, Heat Seeker being the highest charting. It peaked at number 20 in the US. And if memory serves, this album came out after Maximum Overdrive came out. So this is after the Who Made Who album, which is really just a compilation of AC/DC songs and one extra new song for that movie. So this is a bit more of another resurgence for AC/DC. Now, Johnny Rotten went with Nick of Time. Brian went with Heat Seeker. What'd you go with?
That's the way I want to rock and roll, man.
Oh, there's a drink.
Yeah, exactly. And so that song was just so good. I mean, Heat Seeker was really good. This album was actually one of their better ones from, the last 2 or 3 previous albums. But That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll just had a great song. It was just a great lyrical song, I thought. And I just loved it. Just hearing the music, hearing the drums, the band playing all together. And, Brian was singing, not Brian Colburn, by the way, Brian Johnson. I mean, just him singing out is just really great.
I will admit that's The Way I Want to Rock and Roll was on my initial contenders, as was Mean Streak. And this album, you're right. Like, this is a much better, all the way through album. But then, you get near the end, and there's one song that really stood out to me, and it's because it felt so different from, the standard 4-chord major, major chord AC/DC rock, and that's Two's Up. There was something really cool in how much this stood out from almost the rest of the AC/DC discography to this point. It's like, they're going slightly darker. It feels like a minor key. Like, it's what is this? Did they tune weirdly and then continue to play the song? Because that's kind of what it feels like, but I like it. It's one of those songs where you're not necessarily expecting, a left turn from AC/DC, but this kind of felt that way.
Yeah, it did. And it was actually a good song, actually. I will say that. That was pretty, that was a good kick-ass song. It did seem like how could I put it? It did seem darker. I felt like it was like Marilyn Manson met with, I'm trying to think of another, maybe like Danzig or something. You know what I mean? It just was a darker song that I didn't think AC/DC could pull off.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, up to this point, really, I mean, yes, there were some slower, bluesier kind of songs that especially in the earlier albums. This song kind of hits right at a left field, and I wouldn't have hated it if we had a bit more of songs that had a bit more of a different song structure to it. But maybe this is also just them, evolving as songwriters. Because keep in mind, like, this album came out, you do the math here, like 12 years after High Voltage. And it's like, okay, you're evolving as songwriters. Yes, do experiment a bit more. Plus, you're AC/DC. You can do whatever the hell you want. You've definitely earned that to this point.
Oh, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked about Back in Black being a huge album. Now let's talk about an album with a huge song on it. That's The Razor's Edge, released September 24th, 1990. Another member change. We've got Chris Slade now on the drums. However, this album, despite how big one song is off of this one, only hit number 1 in one country.
Really?
I'm going to let you try and guess which country that is.
I'm going to say Australia.
Wrong.
Really? Because they seem to be huge in Australia.
Well, they are Australian, yes.
Yeah, well, they are, but
they hit number 3 in Australia.
Really?
They peaked in number 2 in the U.S. The only country where they hit number 1 with this album, Canada.
Really? Wow. Well, you guys are really good at hockey and saying A and beer, so
right. We'll just change the A at the front to EH, so it's AC/DC. There's the Canadian version right there.
That's probably why I got so much love up there. No, I'm only kidding.
Right.
By the way, wait, before I go on, I do love Canada. I do respect the country.
Mm-hmm.
God bless Canada, because you gave us great hockey players in America.
Yeah, but if there's a Canadian team against the Rangers, to hell with Canada. Gotcha. Okay.
Wow, I didn't say that. And there's no Canadian team playing the Rangers right now. Not yet, at least.
Not yet. Although
we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the album is 5 times platinum in Australia and Canada and the US, double platinum in Switzerland, and platinum in Austria. There were 4 singles off of this one. But now, here's another interesting thing, though. Thunderstruck, as big a song as that is, only hit number 5 in the US, number 4 in Australia. However, they did have one song off of this album hit number 1 somewhere. That was Are You Ready? It hit number 1 in New Zealand. Now,
wow.
Brian, Johnny Rothen, and Jason MB all picked Thunderstruck, and I would be remiss if I didn't agree. Thunderstruck, to me, is every single, no matter what the sport, arena, stadium, every single live event, this song works on so many levels.
Oh, yes, it does. And I would be sad if I didn't say I didn't take Thunderstruck on this too, because A, one of my favorite songs. B, I've heard it during football games every single time. C, it was in one of my favorite football movies, Varsity Blues. And, it was just a great song. And let me put it this way. Hearing Thunderstruck and Varsity Blues and seeing where they put the song in perfectly, I'll tell you, it was one of my favorite scenes movies. It's when you have the world's greatest team get their asses kicked and they lose, and this song is playing in the background. Not the greatest idea, but to hear a song when you're losing. But on top of it, it was perfect because they were all dead-faced drunk because they went to the bar the night before a game. So listen, football players don't go out the night before a game, except if you're Lawrence Taylor, you might get away with it.
Now, I'm just curious because you have mentioned in the past, like, you used to play football, and, a lot of the, these rock songs are, what you would use to pump yourself up before a game. Just taking a look at your playlist so far, how many of those songs would be played in, in the dressing room before heading out onto the field?
For me, I would not lie when I tell you I had two CDs. I had my kind of zone out for a little bit, lay on the ground on the 50-yard line on my side of the football field about 2 hours before a game. I would just sit there, like, kind of nap a little bit. And then once that CD was over, I would wake up, and then I would put on my Get Yourself Crazy CD. At that time, Shoot to Thrill was on there. If You Want Blood, You Got It was on there. Hell's Bells was on there. Thunderstruck was on there. Actually, about 5 songs easily, and then a mix of the old Rocky albums. Some of the Rocky songs, like Robert Tepper, No Easy Way Out, the montage when Rocky's training. Some of those songs that kind of pump you up a little bit too. You know what I mean? So it was kind of a mixture in that it was like AC/DC and Rocky in my CD player.
It sounds to me like you needed to put like little warnings on all your AC/DC CDs. Warning, may cause adrenaline spikes and broken bones.
Actually, did I break a kid's arm that game? I think I did. I might have.
It's funny, a little too close to reality, but funny. Okay.
Now we know not to mess with Gomez.
Oh crap, he's got the AC/DC albums. Run!
Wait, he's driving really fast. He's playing AC/DC again.
All right, now we move on to Ball Breaker, released September 26, 1995. Not Arm Breaker, Ball Breaker. Yet another member change. Phil Rudd back on the drum kit now. This album hit number 1 in 3 countries: Australia, Sweden, and Switzerland. It's triple platinum in Australia, double platinum in the US, and platinum in France. 3 singles off of this one. Hard as a Rock hit number 1 in the US. Now, Brian went with Hard as a Rock. Johnny Rothen went with The Fuhrer. What did you go with off of this?
I actually had 2 songs. The Fuhrer was one of them. But I went with one song that I actually like because what do I do sometimes? I drink whiskey on the rocks, man. It's just a great song. I like it. The Fuhrer was really good too, don't get me wrong. But I went with something I'm going to enjoy myself, and it's Whiskey on the Rocks. How can you go wrong? You can't. It's because there's whiskey in my hand on the rocks.
Well, if you're ordering whiskey, apparently I'm ordering a Hail Caesar off of this one. You see what I did there.
Yes. So, Hail Caesar.
Right. I will say this is another one of those albums, though, where, there's like 1 or 2 standout good songs, but as a whole, especially coming off of an album like The Razor's Edge, it's, you have that peak and then you have that valley. And while, yes, there are good songs on it, it does feel almost, I don't want to say sophomore, but like how, bands have that sophomore slump. First album comes out, it's big. Second album comes out, people are like, oh, what about the album previous? I mean, this is, at this point, you're way deep into AC/DC's career, so it doesn't matter if people like everything that they put out. But this album, to me, again, was, fits and starts at that point. But Hail Caesar was, at least to me, a standout track for that one.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. It's a great song too. It's another great song, but I just went with Whiskey on the Rocks just because that's my drink too. But I truly love the song though. But it was, like you said, that album. Before we move on to the next one, like you said, you're talking about a band that's been around for God knows how long, over 40 some odd years, right? Or now 50 for all I know, and things have changed from the 70s to the 90s. You know what I mean? And now they're going to come in the year 2000. Now you can go on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But it's funny you point that out because, of course, Thunderstruck was released in 1990. Razor's Edge, Ball Breaker released in 95. So you get a 5-year difference, whereas before they were going maybe, 2 years in between albums. Now you got another 5-year wait for Stiff Upper Lip, released February 28th, 2000. The album hit number 1 in Austria and Sweden, hit 7 in the US, and 3 in Australia. It's triple platinum in Australia, platinum in Canada, Switzerland, and the US. 3 singles off of this one. The title track, Stiff Upper Lip, hit number 1 in the US, which is what Brian went with, and Johnny Rotten went with Can't Stand Still. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't go with either of those songs. I ended up going up with All Screwed Up, and mainly it's one of those songs where, again, I'm one of those guys who will sit down, put the headphones on, close the eyes, and try to picture this song as if it's being played live. And this song, to me, really feels like one I would love to be able to see them do live. But what did you end up going with?
So I didn't go with either one. I actually went with something else. So get your shots ready and let's go. Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Because you really can't.
Yep.
I mean,
again, by the way, if you're keeping up with the drinking game at this point, and anytime you hear rock and roll, you're taking a shot, I am so sorry.
There's another shot right there for rock and roll. Another one.
I will dial 911, and by the end of the show, I will dial 1 for you.
I don't think there's going to be a 911. They're like, what's your emergency? Yeah, they were listening to Gomez and Jason. They were listening to the AC/DC show, and every time they said rock and roll, again, shot.
Yeah.
they had to take shots. And what kind of idiot are you? We're good idiots.
I was drunk by Fly on the Wall.
I was hammered by the time I reached Stuff Upper Lip, though.
Oh man. Okay, moving on to Black Ice. Oh, we've devolved.
We've really devolved. There's going to be a warning label on this album. This show.
Warning. Do not take up the challenge that Jason's put out. You will not make it. Black Ice released October 20th, 2008. So 8 years before, after the last album came out. This, I'm just going to put this out there. This album hit number 1 literally everywhere. I'm sure, like if you went under a rock, the one where everyone hides because they don't want to watch things, it still hit number 1 down there. The album is 5 times platinum in Australia and Canada, 4 times platinum in Switzerland, 3 times platinum in Austria, double platinum in France, New Zealand, and the US, and platinum in the UK. The album won Best Rock Album and Highest Selling Album at the ARIA Awards in 2009. War Machine won the 2010 Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance, and the album itself was nominated for Best Rock Album at the Grammys that year. They lost to Green Day's 21st Century Breakdown.
Which was a little hard to swallow.
Well, it's not like Metallica losing to Jethro Tull, but, I mean, it's still a good album.
It is.
4 singles off this one. Rock and Roll Train hit number 1 in the US. Brian went with Rock and Roll Train. By the way, more shots. Johnny Rotten went with Rock and Roll Dream. Yet another shot. I'm so sorry, people. What did you go with?
I'm sorry. You'll be doing another shot. I went with Rock and Roll Train, actually. I got to see their... in 2008, actually, I got to see their tour. I think it was in 2009, and they came to Jersey. So I had the true pleasure of seeing AC/DC live for the very first time there. And on top of it, it was actually in the 2008 show Knight Rider, the Mustang version, not the Pontiac version, guys. And they did the Kit versus Car, and when the new Michael Knight was looking for Kit, this song was playing when he was destroying all Army personnel, which I found kind of funny because he was a one-man killing machine and somehow he pulled it off. But that's another thing to talk about. But this song was in that show too. But I truly love this song. And matter of fact, I was listening to it on the way when I was picking up dinner a couple of hours ago. It was on my album mix.
I will say too, this album really is another one of those front to back, like all the way through, great songwriting. And maybe it's the 8-year break that kind of recharged them, but they came out firing with this album. But I'm going to give the dear listeners a break because I'm going with Anything Goes off of this one.
Okay.
This one to me, and it's funny because as I'm listening to this, you listen to the rest of the songs and you get that it's the AC/DC formula. This one's got more of a John Cougar Mellencamp vibe to it. And I guess it's one of those things where, again, when a band, starts to venture outside of the norm and give you something a little new, that really appeals to me musically. And I thought Anything Goes was a wonderful song off of this one.
It was actually a good song, but I was still more into drink a shot, another shot again, people. Rock and roll train.
You're trying to kill the listeners.
No, I'm not. I'm just giving them a better experience.
Well, get another shot ready, because up next is Rock or Bust, released November 28th, 2014. The album hit number 1 in 7 countries, but not the US, where it only hit number 3. It is triple platinum in France, double platinum in Austria, and platinum in Australia, Canada, Switzerland, and the UK. There were 3 singles off of this album. Play Ball hit number 5 in the US. Both Johnny Roth and M. Brian went with Rock or Bust. However, I went with Play Ball.
Wow. Did you steal my list?
Oh, did you go with that one too?
I went with Play Ball too, actually. As much as I liked Rock or Bust, Play Ball was just a little bit a better sound, I thought, than Rock or Bust. As much as I usually love to go with their opening tracks, which is almost every single album that they have, but I don't know, something about Play Ball was just a better tune, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I did have Baptism by Fire on my short list for that album. But there's just something about Play Ball. And maybe it's because we are recording this, in, the end of April, and, baseball season's upon us, and you want to it feels like a very, for lack of a better term, spring, summery, outdoor kind of vibe from AC/DC.
Barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, crank that in the backyard with the barbecue going and the hot dogs, and do that. That's with what this song feels to me.
Or a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, not PBR. Oh.
All right, Natty Ice.
I think I would take the Natty Ice over the PBR. Maybe that's just me.
I just like Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, man. All right. We've finally come to the end here with Power Up, released November 13th, 2020. Another album that hit number 1 everywhere, although it's only platinum in Austria. 5 singles off of this one. Shot in the Dark hit number 1 in the US. Johnny Roth went with Realize. Brian went with Shot in the Dark. What did you go with?
I'm going to have to agree with Johnny. Realize. I went with that song. Just, again, a solid opener. Like we said, we talked about almost a lot of great songs, but we've picked a lot of their opener songs or pretty much some of their best ones. You know what I mean? And I like Shot in the Dark, but something about Realize was just a great tune.
You know what's funny? I didn't agree with any of you.
Okay. Well, that's...
it's funny because as I was listening to this album, and at some point you have to sit there and realize that at some point there's not going to be any more new AC/DC albums. No. But considering that, the wealth of songs that they've given us, at some point there's going to be one of those like Banger Films type documentaries that just chronicles the entire arc of their career. And if you're ever looking for a song to use for a montage in that future documentary, I would use Through the Mists of Time off of this album.
Ooh.
It really, this song screams montage the entire way through. Historical, chronological, looking back at the great moments of your life kind of montage. One of those ones. I feel like Team America, we're going to need a montage. But yeah, Through the Mists of Time. Again, it surprised me how different it was in comparison to other AC/DC songs, but it stood out. And now, by the way, if anyone does an AC/DC documentary and that's the song that they use, you're welcome. But Gomez,
you got a montage, brother.
We got to do this now. We got to get a montage. All right, Gomez, it has come time. So we're going to go through our lists one by one and then pick one song that stands out amongst them all. So I'll go first here. Starting with off the album High Voltage, I went with It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. Follow that up with Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Then Whole Lotta Rosie. Riff Raff, If You Want Blood, You've Got It, Shoot to Thrill, For those about to rock, we salute you. Deep in the Hole, Show Business off of the 74 Jailbreak EP, Sink the Pink, Two's Up, Thunderstruck, Hail Caesar, All Screwed Up, Anything Goes, Play Ball, and Through the Mists of Time. But if I had to pick one song, I think... no, you know what? I got to stick with it. I got to go with Thunderstruck. This song is literally the epitome of everything you want in a live show. From the opening build up to the crowd chanting to the fist pumping. It is everything that AC/DC represents as a live act is encompassed in this one song. All right, Gomez, let's get the rundown. And what is your one song above all?
My one song. Well, let me do my list, I guess, first before I choose that one. So out of High Voltage, I went It's a Long Way to the Top. If you want to rock and roll, have a shot on me. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, Big Balls, Let There Be Rock, Whole Lot of Rosie. Excuse me. Powerage, Kicked in the Teeth, Highway to Hell, If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Back in Black, I went with Shoot to Thrill. For those about to rock, we salute you. I went with the main song. For those about to rock, we do salute you. Flick the Switch, I went with Landslide. 74 Jailbreak, I went with Jailbreak, sorry. Flying the Wall, I went with Stand Up. Blow Up Your Video, That's the Way I Want to Rock and Roll. Another shot for you. Razor's Edge, Thunderstruck. Ball Breaker, Whiskey on the Rocks. Stiff Upper Lip, Can't Stop, Rock and Roll. Have another shot. Black Ice, Rock and Roll Train, have another shot. Rock or Bust, Play Ball. Power Up, Realize. Now, the song that really stuck out with me, and there's a few of them, you know what I mean? If You Want Blood, Shoot to Thrill, but the one that always does resent home to me, will always be Thunderstruck. If you go hear it live, it's unbelievable. Like you said, the chanting, the thunder you hear in the background. But then when you hear Angus come up with his solo in the beginning of the song, you're like, hell yes. Bring it, bring it, bring it. You know what I mean? It was just one of those, ooh, yeah.
It really does feel like musically that was them firing on every single cylinder, and then they borrowed a few extra cylinders to pump into that song. But when you consider like just the wealth of songwriting and the wealth of just good rock and roll, sorry, there's another shot, you know, like it's an amazing career to look at, and especially how unflinchingly themselves that they were through their entire run. Gomez, thank you so much for going down this road. To the listeners, I'm so sorry that you're probably drunk right now. You're probably asleep. You're snoring at this point. Either that or you need a doctor.
We do apologize. We really do apologize for that.
Sorry, not sorry. Gomez, one more time for the listeners. Where can our listeners find the Sleevey G Show?
So pretty easy, guys. You could connect to my Instagram, SleevyG, 79 Twitter, SleevyG_79. Find me at sleevygpodcasts.com. Also, check me out the Linktree /SleevyG79. That will connect you to all my YouTube podcast stations, my webpage, everything. Please come check out the show. I would always appreciate anybody who leaves a message, 5-star on Good Pods for me, anywhere you could do it. But also, please hit that YouTube subscribe, because there's a lot coming up soon. And I actually got 2 good pieces that we're going to be coming out very soon. Probably one in this month in May and another one in June. So I would love people to hear and raise awareness on these 2 things that I will mention throughout the week. So please check me out, man.
Dude, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on either one of the shows. Now, to you, our listeners, you know where to find us on Twitter. That's at OnlyOneCast. You can also find all of our back episodes and all of the episodes from our other show, It's Not That Bad, over at our website, notthatbadcast.com. By the way, if there's a band or a singer that you want us to cover, hit us up on Twitter or send us an email at the website. We would love to hear from you, and we will absolutely listen to pretty much anybody that you throw at us. Hopefully it's not 17 albums, but we'll take it if it comes. Until next time, I'm Jay, he's Gomez. Listeners, you guys are awesome. I know you're drunk, you didn't hear that, but that's okay. This is There Can Only Be One. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.